Hello and welcome to Auto and Operator, the podcast that discusses everything open wheel racing related. Hi, I'm your co-host Andrew Miller. Today we are debriefing the Long Beach Grand Prix, the Monaco Grand Prix equivalent for the Verizon IndyCar Series, if you will. Big crowds, celebrities. It's a fantastic event. Having watched both the IndyCar and IMSA races, I think the whole event in and of itself will be really fun to go to. I'm glad it's on the calendar, and from what I've read, it's going to be on the calendar for some time in the future. So that's really good news for the IndyCar. One puzzling thing I'd like to point out is why in the hell Toyota sponsors it. They have Lexus running, a semi-factory effort in the GT Daytona class in the IMSA WeatherTech sports car series, but at least have Lexus sponsor the event then. I don't really get why they do the whole Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach thing. Moving on to the race, however, got to give full props to James Hinchcliffe and the Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports team. What a fantastic weekend for them. They were fast all weekend. You have to say, though, they got lucky at the end of the race with Andretti Autosport having absolutely disastrous reliability. All four of their cars went out, I believe, but more importantly, Ryan Hunter-Reay was taken out of the race with some sort of electrical issue at the end. But 2 thumbs up to James. He really needed that win, I think, along with pole last year in the Indy 500. I think this will really boost his confidence, and I think we'll see him come out with full attack mode in Barber this weekend. Moving on to Andretti Autosport. Speaking of that reliability, come on, guys, you got to fix this shit. A stuck throttle on Marco Andretti's car. He had a stuck throttle last year. My $350 go-kart I had as a kid had a stuck throttle. Fixed it. Moving on, Ryan Hunter-Reay. He was probably the favorite for the win, in my opinion. I think him and Scott Dixon would have gone pretty hardcore together. But Alexander Rossi, he was right behind him, just as quick, in my opinion. While we're on the subject of Alexander Rossi, one thing I noticed that he was struggling with tremendously during the race was cold tires. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Scott Dixon, he absolutely is a master at controlling and getting the most speed out of the car despite such terrible initial grip with these very durable tires. Alexander Rossi, though, just to come back to him, he had great pace, though. After their final stop, he lost about 5 seconds on the outlap to his teammate Ryan Hunter-Reay, whom he pretty much ran the entire race with, or right behind him. In fact, I do believe he passed him, maybe in the first third of the race. But he pulled back that 5-second gap within a lap. And that just goes to show his pace was fierce, but he has a weakness on cold tires. We'll see if that continues into this weekend at Barber, or if that was more of a street course specific issue. But I must say, high five to Scott Dixon. That guy's got tremendous car control and obviously a tremendous ability to carry speed without, if you will, overwhelming the tires before the pressures are up. Third place, we had Joseph Newgarden. Joseph Newgarden definitely played it safe at the end of the race. Sebastian Bourdais was clearly slower. He deserved to be up there, and we'll get on to him in a minute. But Joseph Newgarden probably should have passed Sebastian Bourdais at the end, but I think he's feeling the pressure from the Penske camp and is certainly shooting for the championship, so he's being a little bit conservative. Maybe this will, if at least just one rostrum under his belt, will get him a little bit more aggressive at Barber, because I definitely missed that aggressive Joseph Newgarden. Dale Coyne, though, you got to give them props. They obviously have a great team, and they were able to set the cars up well. Sebastian Bourdais was fast again. Now, obviously, this was a similar track to St. Pete, so it's natural that their pace from St. Pete transferred over. But lap 2, I believe, Sebastian Bourdais had to pit based on his replacing his front wing. And my God, I mean, he had fierce pace to be able to come back through the field like that. We had 2 cautions at the end, but to my knowledge, looking at the data, I don't think he really gained anything massive from the caution periods, but I could be wrong. His teammate, rookie teammate, Ed Jones, was equally impressive. Had great pace and consistency, stayed out of trouble. And staying out of trouble is hard to do on a street course, particularly when you got idiots like Charlie Kimball in the series. And I'm not going to waste anybody's time talking about Charlie Kimball, except that I should mention that Power needs to stay away from Kimball. Power is obviously too prideful. Kimball's too stupid. And, you know, Kimball needs to be penalized, and Power needs to have a sit down and say, listen, if you're side by side with Kimball, just don't. He's impossible to pass. Paul Tracy was being very diplomatic in the broadcast by saying that Charlie's hard to pass. He's impossible to pass. I can't honestly remember within the last couple seasons anyone who successfully have passed Kimball on a road course without some sort of contact and resulting, disadvantage from doing so. I must make an honorable mention to Simon Pagenaud, who drove the absolute shit out of his car on the streets of Long Beach. It was an absolute pleasure to watch him make his way up the field. He started at the very back. Therefore, he was on a balls-to-the-wall strategy, and I must say that is so refreshing to see. His onboard footage, he was just driving the absolute limit throughout the entire race. He considers it one of his best races. I must say, I have a ton more respect for Simon Pagenaud now because I could easily, prior to the Long Beach Grand Prix, seen him evolve into a whiny driver who, as a champion, maybe feels entitled to be at the front. Therefore, the races they're starting in the back, they get be more frustrated and just tend to complain on the radio. Well, Simon Pagenaud did just the opposite. He focused 100%, balls to the wall, pushed the limit, drove the wheels off his race car, and that's exactly what I think Scott Dixon would do. A true champion, he demonstrated himself to be. And so definitely high fives to Simon Pagenaud. One of the best drives I've seen of his career, despite ending up in 5th place. I think it was a really good showing of his talent and of his, in general, his psychology as an athlete. So props to him for sure. Who else did I want to mention? Spencer Pickett. That guy was fast again. Hildebrand, he's gonna be unemployed in a hurry again if Spencer continues his form, especially with Hildebrand breaking his hand and Zach Veach taking the seat this weekend. I mean, we have 2 young guns here that can completely push that guy out of the seat at Ed Carpenter Racing. So props to Ed Carpenter for hiring these young guys and giving them a shot and giving them some IndyCar experience because nobody else is. And to be honest, Zach Veach could take Hildebrand's ride. I don't know if he could take it mid-season, but hell, if Veach shows the pace that he did in Sonoma, I think we could be in for it. Another point that I'd like to make with regards to Barber this weekend is a little bit of a preview, is Sebastian Bourdais. I think he'll be the dark horse. They had a terrible test there following the first round at St. Pete, but in Sonoma, the Dale Coyne team came up with a solution, ended up on top of the test there, and they're hoping that carries over the Barber. So we will see. That's a bulk of my highlights from the Long Beach weekend. As I said, it was a great weekend overall. We've had 2 solid street course races. Unfortunately, there was a couple yellows at the end, but that was Andretti's fault for the most part with their cars pooping out. So let's move on to Barber. Let's see how they get on at a proper road course. I think it's going to be a great one. Talk to you in a few days, or actually my brother Derek will. Leave any comments. Let us know what you think of the podcast. See you later.